And welcome back to your Kingsport Chamber Zone, on location from the newsroom here at the Kingsport Times-News.
Yeah, Kingsport is a beautiful and charming city, but just like any place, of course, you have a couple of areas within the city where you're like, oh, I wish we could do something about that, or maybe it doesn't quite reflect what we would like our city to show those people who don't live here. And the city of Kingsport has a renewed effort to make sure that we clean up those areas and we truly let Kingsport shine like the gem that we know that it is. Here to tell us more about it is Officer Melanie Adkins with the Kingsport Police Department. I feel a little nervous.
I know it. Between Keith having the publisher on and now a police officer, we really got to step it up.
Yeah. On the show. I kind of wonder what we're getting into on the Kingsport Chamber Zone. It's Officer Adkins' first appearance, of course, on the Kingsport Chamber Zone, and she is the officer who deals with the code enforcement issues with the police department. So, Officer Adkins, thank you so much for being on the show. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, tell us a little bit about what codes enforcement means in Kingsport.
Well, let me say first that about a year ago, the Codes Enforcement Program was transferred out of the police department into developmental services. So I am now acting as a civilian codes enforcement officer. And the reason for that was to try to consolidate our efforts and work with the planning department, zoning, and the building department. And so we are all under one roof now where we can collaborate and make our efforts more consolidated with, of course, more effectiveness. So prior to about a year ago, my role was basically reactive in the sense of I would respond to complaints and try to get those properties in compliance with the codes or the ordinances. Now, it is still very similar. The difference is, as codes enforcement coordinator, which is my role now, I handle property maintenance codes, and then in addition, I filled out the other complaints to the appropriate, such as Public Works or the building department or zoning. So that is how we've
It's a team effort.
It's a team effort now, more so than what it was.
That's great.
Well, it truly is a team effort. It's a renewed effort. And when we talk about these dilapidated, blighted eyesores of properties, what are we talking about? What are the problems you're trying to fix through your codes enforcement program?
I think one of the big problems that we have are vacant properties, which maybe result from deceased owners, foreclosed properties, and then they get neglected and they begin to fall down. So rather than emphasize so much on cosmetic issues, it's more of a structural problem where we've got roofs falling, we've got foundations caving in. So we are also trying to consolidate our efforts in communities. For example, we started working very hard in the Highland area months ago, and we have demolished several properties in that area now. So we are attacking communities as a whole, as opposed to just a house here and a house there.
So, and I'm sorry, Bob. And so when you talk about attacking those properties and demolishing those properties like you were talking about in the Highlands area, what kind of impact do you expect that to have on the Highlands area?
It's having a great impact because we are, number one, getting rid of the dilapidated properties, and then we're also looking at some programs where some of these maybe government agencies are looking at coming in and purchasing some of these properties to develop them with other houses or apartments. So this is something that we're looking at long term. So we're going to have a twofold process going on.
And I know, and Officer Adkins, do you also look at like junk in yards and litter and trash? I mean, you also have codes enforcement for that too, correct?
Yes, we do, and that is primarily what I do. I work on property maintenance, so I deal with properties where grass is not being mowed. And as I said, most of those problems are with vacant properties, or we do have a lot of junked up yards. Abandoned vehicles, people just storing a lot of junk and trash on their properties. So I do have to deal with a lot of those.
And what do you do with those properties?
As of right now, we cite those people into city court if they refuse to comply with the ordinance and bring the properties up to code and take care of whatever problems we have asked them to take care of. We are looking at some other options for the near future, such as an environmental court, which would have more teeth in it for enforcement. We're also looking at possibly some land grants, which would enable us to bypass say in a situation where we have many heirs to a property and we can't notify all those heirs, then this enables us to attach liens and take these properties and bypass that.
Okay.
So we're going to be able to actually attach
Right.
liens and take
Sure.
more properties in the future.
And you talked about certainly being concerned about structural integrity and safety and things of that nature. And then you also touched, it's also got an economic value to it as well, because obviously the more that we're able to make the community look better, then the more that we're going to expect people being willing to invest in the community.
Yes, it's contagious, for one thing. I have seen a lot of nearby properties be upgraded by owners just because one house was torn down, and it gives them some incentive, and they'll get out and they'll start working. Another thing too is some of these vacant properties where, like I said, the owners are deceased, they have back taxes, and so there's nothing to gain from these
Right.
properties anymore. So to revitalize the properties and to rebuild or to be able to sell them, then once again there is an economic progress being made there too.
Right, right. So if people want to report any kind of issue that they're having, how do they do that?
The hotline, 224-CODE, 224-2633, and we have people that man those phones, and then the calls get fielded out to the appropriate department depending on what the complaint is.
Okay.
And it's important because citizens and residents can help with this. If they see something, they really need to call that hotline, right?
That's right, and we do rely on citizen input. As of right
Okay.
now, we don't have the manpower to go out and be proactive as far as patrolling every neighborhood and finding these complaints. So we do rely on the citizens
Okay.
to call us and
Okay.
make us aware of what's going on out there.
That's great.
And that codes enforcement hotline number one more time is?
224-2633 or 224-CODE.
Okay, 224 code.
Yes.
Well, Officer Melanie Adkins with the City of Kingsport, the Codes Enforcement Officer. Thanks for joining us today, and,
Yes.
and thanks for what you're doing to beautify and enhance our city.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
Stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to have a preview of a collaboration between Symphony of the Mountains and Barter Theater right after this.